Hi friends, Stephanie here, and I'm back with more movie chatter. And I took a dose of my cold medicine, so we're going to power through this video because I'm really excited about this topic. These are 10 films that either bombed or underperformed on their theatrical release at the box office, but then found their audience and their footing with their physical media releases. So this is pretty cool. And some of the movies on this list are going to surprise you because I know they surprised me when I was doing my research. And the first one came out, I think it was in 1994. It's Tim Robbins and Morgan Freeman in The Shawshank Redemption. And I know you're probably surprised at this. I was surprised at this one myself. This did not do well at the box office. I think it made like $16 million of its $32 million budget. So it didn't even break even. And part of the problem was the marketing. People didn't know what to do with it. They didn't understand the title, The Shawshank Redemption. Like, what is that? They weren't interested in prison movies, let alone a prison drama, and they really didn't know what to make of it. So to get people into the theater to see it, it just wasn't happening. And you have to remember, we didn't have social media at that time, so there wasn't the ability for people to create buzz, talk about it, share their feelings. It was really dependent on what the critics said and what the marketing was, and it wasn't that great for this. And it wasn't until it was released to VHS, because we were still in the video store days, that people could actually go in, decide to rent it, and they really connected with it and they loved it. And this was the #1 rented movie in 1995. And then as subsequent releases, like when we got to DVD, Blu-ray, and now 4K, people just continued to rent it. They love it. They connected with the special features. They were able to find out more about it, the making of, the thinking behind it, and they were really able to embrace this film, and it really helped give it the longevity that it has had as a it's a classic for a reason. It's a beloved classic. People love this movie now. And if you ask, if people make lists and whatnot, this finds its way on almost every list as a favorite of the 90s, and people love it to this day. I know for me, I asked my brother, I said, what's your favorite movie of all time? He didn't even think about it. Shawshank Redemption. Didn't even think about it. And I know there's a lot of people like that. And the longevity and the popularity of this film is really thanks to the second win that it got from physical media and continued releases, and now we're up to 4K. So people just love this movie, and I do too. Shawshank Redemption, first one on the list, and a surprise. Now this next one is, it had one of the worst Memorial Day openings, theatrical openings of all time. And it's Anna Taylor-Joy and Chris Hemsworth in Furiosa, a Mad Max Saga. And this one was coming off the popularity of Mad Max Fury Road, which people really loved. It was a, an action dystopian kind of sci-fi film. And then what happened is people found out that this was going to be a prequel, and they found out that it was going to be focusing on certain characters, and there were different actors, and they weren't really connecting with the promotional information that they were being given. They weren't really big. There was a lot of prequel fatigue. People weren't interested in it. And there wasn't a lot of buzz, like positive buzz about this. So it really didn't do well on its theatrical release. But what happened is when it was coming to home, physical release for home video and people could buy it, they really turned out great releases with lots of special features and ways that people could really connect with the film that they couldn't if they had seen it in the theaters, or if they didn't even bother to go in theaters. And this became a disc that was one that wanted to be on. There was pride of ownership in getting your hands on this one. And it became the #1 selling disc in August of 2024 because of the way the physical release for ownership was marketed, and people just fell in love with this film. And there were so many cool releases, from the DVD all the way up to the really cool steelbooks and Blu-ray and 4K, and you could really appreciate the special effects, and people liked the characters. They figured out that they liked the characters after all, and this is a movie that to this day is very popular. So Furiosa is definitely one that benefited from a physical media release, so I'm happy about that one. And now this next one, this is a beloved horror movie, and it did not start out this way. This was released in 1982, and this is a John Carpenter film. John Carpenter's The Thing. And this one was just not picked up by the critics in a positive way. They didn't like the bleakness of it. They didn't like the paranoia. They didn't like the dark, depressing tone of the movie. And they especially did not like the gore. They didn't want anything to do with it. And they didn't take into effect anything about these groundbreaking practical effects that were put into it, the cinematography, nothing. All they did is they kind of pushed people towards the competition, which at the time was E.T., which was this little feel-good movie, not a little feel-good movie, but a feel-good movie about this cute little alien, and that's what people ended up going to see. And once, it wasn't until this was released again to VHS for home rental that it really found its footing, it really found its audience, and it got that second wind that it badly needed to become the horror masterpiece that it's considered today. And audiences just connected with it. They were able to watch it over and over and gain an appreciation for the film, even though, yes, it's dark, it's bleak, it's filled with paranoia, it's gory, and people just loved it. The horror community loved it, and it even kind of branched out to maybe non-horror fans who just appreciated it for what it was. And as the releases got better, as we moved to like DVD and Blu-ray and more like high-def 4K releases, people were really able to hone in on the genius of the practical effects and the cinematography. And this is one that to this day is just so beloved by especially the horror community. And I'll tell you, you cannot find a best of horror list without the thing on it. You would be hard pressed to find it. And if it's not on the list, people are in the comment section asking where it is, because this is one that is usually on the top of most people's lists. And the thing is a classic for a reason, and physical media has a lot to do with it, because it certainly wasn't the theatrical release. That would go to E.T. So this next one, this one probably won't surprise a lot of people, because I know I put off watching this for a really long time because I just heard really not great things about it. And it's Fight Club, and this is one of the DVD releases that that came out that really helped this along. This is another one that it was released in 1999, and people just didn't know what to do with it. It was very dark in tone. Everything that all the marketing showed that it was a very dark film. It was very dark in tone. It was violent. They didn't really know what to make of it. They didn't know if they wanted to see something so dark and so violent, and they didn't understand the story behind it. They were a little confused by it. They were a lot confused by it. So it didn't do very well in the theater. I think it made I think it was like 37 million of its $63 million budget. So it didn't even break even. And it wasn't until it got physical media releases that people were actually able to sit. And I think a lot of it was due to like the extra features, special features, where they could hear interviews and see extra like interviews with the directors, maybe commentary, things like that. And they could really jump into those extra features and special features, that they could really understand what it is, what is the story that they were trying to tell with this movie. And you have a lead like Brad Pitt, and it still didn't drag the movie. It didn't drag people into the theater to see this movie. But once it got physical releases, and it got beautiful releases like this one, this is just the DVD one. And if you look at some of the artwork, I mean, it's beautiful artwork. And you get this great special release, or it wasn't even a special release, it was a physical media DVD release, and you get the artwork, and people could really jump into this film, and they could watch it over and over again. And I think word of mouth was huge. I know for me, word of mouth is why I ended up watching this. And they were really able to understand what the story was and what they were trying to convey with the story that just didn't come through in the marketing. The marketing for this one was just so confusing. I didn't know what it was. But people really connected with this one on the physical media release. And I know that's what saved this movie. And to this day, it's a movie that people will put on many, many lists. And it is a popular classic for a reason. It remains very high in popularity. People love Fight Club. So this is one that definitely needed a physical release, and it got it, and it saved this movie. Definitely physical media saved this movie. And then we're going to go to The Edge of Tomorrow, which was a movie that people just didn't know what to do with this one. It starred Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt. And this was just one of those films. I know when I saw the trailer for it, it just, to me, it looked like a Groundhog Day. And I am not a fan of movies where it's like the same thing over and over, and the same scene repeating itself over and over again. And that's what this was shown as. And I was like, I don't want to see the same thing over and over again. It's kind of dopey. I don't see the point in it. I'm not a huge sci-fi fan, but it had like Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt, two strong leads. The message and the marketing of this, again, it was very, very confusing of what they were going for with this film. And then it got to video on demand, and people started to rent it, and they started to like it. And then it got that tagline, live, die, repeat. And that was the big joke, that nobody really called it by its title, Edge of Tomorrow. Everybody called it live, die, repeat. And this was a movie that gained very high popularity once it got to home media release. And you have to remember too, this was a standalone film. It wasn't part of a franchise. And at the time when it was released to theaters, it was up against one of the X-Men, the installments of X-Men. It was also up against one of the Transformers movies. So these were established, and I think Maleficent was coming out. So that was a Disney movie that people were pushing, the live action one. And so it was up against some strong competition, and it wasn't until it got the physical releases where people could actually sit, and again, they can enjoy the special features, they can enjoy the movie, they could watch it over and over again, and they could really gain a new appreciation for this film that they never even bothered to have in the theatrical run. So this was definitely saved by home media and physical media releases. Now, I love this next one. This is from 1983. It's a Martin Scorsese film. It stars Robert De Niro and Jerry Lewis in The King of Comedy. Good old Rupert Pupkin, the wannabe stand-up comedian who is just not hitting it. Now, this was very popular with critics, but it really didn't connect with audiences because audiences weren't really ready for the focus on like celebrity culture and the obsession, like media obsession, and this obsession for popularity and celebrity status that this movie really focuses on, because Robert De Niro plays this guy who he's a stand-up comedian, and all he wants is to be popular, and he's just not getting there, and he wants to get on this late night talk show where he thinks he's going to be discovered. And you know, if you've seen this, you know the story. If you haven't seen this, definitely give it a watch because it's fantastic. And it really didn't do well at all. I think it only made like 2.9 million at the box office, and I think it was only a budget of maybe 16 million. But it really didn't do well with audiences, and they didn't really know what to make of it. It's a very awkward film to watch. It's very uncomfortable, very cringe in points, but once you see this movie and you connect with it, you really do get the dark comedy tones, and you really do connect with the awkwardness of the film, for lack of a better way to put it. But Robert De Niro's fantastic in this one, and what ended up happening is once it had a little time and it got to home media, people were able to really connect with it, and they were able to see what was the message that the film was going for, and it really found a second life, and it found its footing, and it found its audience through physical media releases. And this became such a cult classic that it actually, Robert De Niro, his role as Franklin Murray in Joker was actually a nod to this movie, and that's how far it's carried it. It's still a cult classic to today. It's definitely got its audience, it's definitely got its footing, and that is all thanks to physical media releases, where audiences were able to better connect with the characters and with the story and with what we were going for. Because you have to remember, back in the day, we were not on the 24/7 news cycle that we're on now. We weren't obsessed. We didn't have celebrity obsession like we do now. But back then, this is a movie that was definitely ahead of its time, but it's so, so good. So King of Comedy is an excellent one. Now this next one, this is another one. It was loved by the critics, but it was just a tough sell for people to get into the theater, and that is Blade Runner 2049, Ryan Gosling and Harrison Ford. And like I said, this was loved by the critics. They loved everything about it. They loved the cinematography, the special effects, the story, everything. But you have to remember, this was a 3-hour runtime. It's a very slow moving movie, kind of unfolds in its own time. It's very much for a niche audience at the time. And to get people into the theater to watch a 3-hour movie like this, that's not like a high octane action movie, is very, very hard. So it kind of bombed at the theater. But what ended up happening is, even though it was loved by critics, it wasn't until it was released to physical media where people could actually buy it, and they did these great releases. They were able to get all the special features that they needed to understand the story. They could watch the 3-hour movie at home, at their leisure, at their comfort level, and people loved this movie. I can't tell you how many people told me that they wanted me to watch and review Blade Runner 2049 once it came available to physical media, and I did have my channel at this time. And this just found its footing, and it got what it needed out of physical media. And I believe physical media really saved this movie and bumped it up to the top where it really rightfully belonged, because it is a beautiful, stunning movie. It's a cool story, especially if you know the first one, the original one. And I can easily watch a 3-hour movie at home, not so much in the theaters, but really, really cool stuff, beautiful effects. It's a beautiful looking movie, and the releases that they did for this were top notch, and it really did elevate this to the status that it holds today. And people do love this movie. So Blade Runner 2049 is another one that just kind of died on the vine going into the theaters, but you know, did very well subsequently with physical media releases. And this next one, Scott Pilgrim versus the World. This is another one. It was ahead of its time. It was kind of part of the problem was in the marketing, and also the fact that it's really a mixed genre film. You have like this action, it's romance, it's comedy. You have all kinds of things wound up together, and people really didn't know what to make of it. The other thing was that it really focused on like what they call the geek nerd culture, where it was people that were into video games, comic books, things like that. And again, it could have been ahead of its time, because now these days people are very proud to say, hey, yeah, I live for video games. I live for comic books, or whatever it is that you're into, you know, movie collecting, whatever geeky, nerdy thing you're into. It's cool to be a geek and a nerd. But back then, you know, it was a very, again, a niche audience. So it was very hard to get people into the theaters to see this. But once it really was released to home media, physical media, and people were able, it was able to find its audience. It was able to connect with the people that the movie was written for. And it really did not only elevate the movie to where it needed to be, or where it should have been, but it also helped with the entire franchise. It helped with the game sales. It created a spin-off of an animated series. Not only did it elevate the movie, but everything else. They also sold a lot of collectibles that were very popular for it. There's so many different releases of this movie out there. I can't tell you how many times I own this movie, but it's a great movie, but it just didn't hit with the theater crowd because they didn't really know what it was and what to make of it. But once it found its footing and it found its audience, it really became widely loved over the years. And I know a lot of people who maybe they're not into games or comic books, but they love this movie. Okay, and this next one is another one from poor Martin Scorsese. He's on the list twice. But this is 2011's Hugo. And this, I have to say, was just a marketing disaster. It was just so mismarketed. People had no idea what this one was about. And even though it won numerous Oscars, it was very well received by critics who understood what the movie was about. The marketing was so confusing. People had no idea what they were in for with this one. As a matter of fact, now this is the most recent release, I think it was from last year, from Arrow. But if you look at some of the art that they were using, it was very hard to convince people that it was not a children's movie. But really what it is a movie about film preservation, and in particular the work of Georges Méliès from 1902, his movie, very short film, A Trip to the Moon. And that's a very popular image if you've seen it. But a lot of his work, the Georges Méliès, his work was destroyed. And this film kind of focuses on it in a roundabout way. I mean, they get to it eventually, but this is really a love letter to film preservation and the early works of film. So that really didn't come through in the marketing, and people didn't know what to make of it, so it really flopped at the theaters. And then it had a big budget to live up to, which it didn't make. But when it came to home media and physical media releases, people were actually able to sit down and understand it, because in particular the special features, the director commentary, interviews, all the things that it was able to offer to make people understand what it was about. And even if you didn't know who Georges Méliès was in the beginning of the film, you would know after and with the special features. And with Arrow, they had the sense to change the cover art there to make it more accessible and make people say, you know, what is this film about? Because it doesn't look like a kid's film when you look at this artwork. And I know people who only discovered this when this Arrow release came out, and they were blown away by it. Because if you love film history, if you're a cinephile, even if you're not a cinephile, if you just are a film enthusiast, you are going to love Hugo. But you would never know that by the pre-theater marketing, because it was so confusing and it looked like Harry Potter light. But when you see this film, you will fall in love with it. I know I was singing its praises for a long time, and I kind of gave up because I couldn't sell people on the cover art. But once they started to see this, and this is a stunning, beautiful release, and the cinematography is gorgeous, the special effects are gorgeous, everything about this is impeccable. And like I said, it is a love letter to early film and film preservation. So it finally found its footing, it finally found its audience, and it is thanks definitely to physical media releases, where audiences were able to finally connect with it and see the genius behind what is the movie Hugo. It is fantastic. So definitely, if you haven't seen this one, definitely give it a look. You will not be disappointed. And the final one that I have is actually a Coen Brothers film, and it stars Tim Robbins, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Paul Newman in The Hudsucker Proxy. And I had no idea what this was about. I had heard good things about it. It wasn't until maybe about 3 years ago that I popped it in one night, because I had picked it up on good authority that it was a great film. And I watched it. And I love the Coen Brothers, so I watch everything they put out. But this definitely was not what I was expecting, and audiences had no idea what to make of this film. They found it to be awkward and weird and dark comedy that they didn't understand. They really didn't understand what it was that they were going for, and it didn't do well in the theaters. And you also have to remember, when this film was released, its competition at the theater was things like Pulp Fiction. So what are you going to see, Pulp Fiction or The Hudsucker Proxy? They went to see Pulp Fiction, so they didn't really connect with this one until it got a physical media release that they could sit and then decide to check it out at home. And that's where it found its footing, and that's where it found its audience, and that's why it's so popular today. And it is part of the Warner Archive collection. And like I said, they had great special features that explained the film and explained what they were going for. And instead of just being seen as this quirky, weird Coen Brothers film that nobody knew what to do with, they understood what it was doing. And that's where it found its footing. And that's why it remains such a popular film today. Because even if it's not like mainstream popular, it definitely has a cult following, and a diehard cult following. Because when I shared this on Instagram, so many people said what a great film it was, and that everybody should see it. And I agree. This is a fantastic film, and it's a lot of fun. And I am so happy that it got a great physical media release, or releases, that helped people find it, because it's a good one. So those are just 10 films that kind of bombed at the box office or underperformed. Maybe their budget was too high and there just wasn't enough oomph behind it to get people into the theaters. But they found their footing, and they found their audience. They got their second win from physical media, and that is just one of many reasons why we have to continue to preserve, collect, and buy physical media. So I want to thank you for checking this out. You know, I appreciate each and every one of you. I know I'm a little airheaded today because I'm on the cold medicine, but I'm doing my best, and I have a few more really cool videos that I want to share with you in the next coming days. So I'm going to rest and relax and get better. And I will be back in a few days. I want to thank, as always, I want to thank you, each and every one of you, for clicking on this video. You know I appreciate you. If you want to subscribe, share, hype, do all the things that we do, feel free. If not, that's fine too. But I'm going to catch you in the next one, and I will definitely have Pickle down here with me when I'm feeling a little bit better. So for now, that's a wrap.